Hey guys, I'm super excited about the video today. Mindset training is something that I really love. For me, mindset training is the possibility to change how a person sees themselves and, and their place in the world and how to change that, right? Like, so it's a very powerful thing. The purpose today is to talk about like all the different ways to look at mindset and how to apply that to your training. However, I think you can apply this to anything in your life, right? Like it should be very encompassing and very broad. So let's go ahead and start. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to start by defining mindset, right? Like and look at it from that angle. So let me bring my slides here. So we're gonna start with what is mindset, and the first thing that mindset is not an attitude. So it's such a hot word, it's such an overused word nowadays that it has become synonym of attitude, right? Like, so most people will say like, oh man, I went to that meeting and I was ready to crush it and I crushed it, I had the best mindset. And that is not a mindset, that's just an attitude, right? And attitudes are great and super important, but mindset is something a little bit different. So the first thing that you have to consider is that mindset is a set of ideas and assumptions that mediate our behaviors, right? Like that is the first thing. It's a set of ideas. It's a theory, right? Like that mediate our behaviors, that like conditions that determines our behaviors. But that set of ideas is not any set of ideas. It's a set of ideas that we use to define ourselves. It's a set of ideas that if you ask a person like who are you, like tell me more about your thing, that is going to be those sets of ideas that they're telling you determine a particular mindset, right? And so you can see now that you can have mindset about particular part of specific parts of yourself, or you can have a mindset about like your general self, right? Like it could be like we can go in and out a little bit, but it defines you. It's like something that you think about yourself, right? Like, so it's more than an attitude, right? Like and that starts telling you what is important here. And the last thing is that the mediation, the cool thing about actually mindset and what we have been discovering in what we base mindset training off is that mediation between, you know, like the mindset that you have, the way you see yourself and your behaviors, that mediation is very directional, right? So your behaviors can affect your mindsets affect your behaviors, and that mindset training lives in that relationship, right? And so and that's very powerful because that whole thing is what allows us to train our mindsets, to change them, right? Before we go into fix and growth mindset, one thing that you have to take into consideration is that all these definition of mindset, everything here really is possible if you think about the mind as understood by the guys from the behavioral cognitive theory school, right? Like thinking about the mind, how the mind works in that framework really makes mindset an applicable concept, right? And the good thing is that behavioral cognitive therapy is something that has been studied, researched, and that makes sense, that makes practical sense. So this is not just a theory, it has some evidence behind it that is useful. And so just keep that in mind because that is important. Okay, the whole thing about mindset, the whole concept was really defined and popularized by Carol Dweck. And what she really defined was more than mindset. She really defined two types of mindset, a fixed and a growth mindset. And she saw that there were people that in different aspects of their life will move from one side to the other. And so let's talk about these mindsets. Let's talk about like what is a fixed mindset, what is a growth mindset, and that will allow us to talk about other models, right? And that will this will define the way to think about it. So the first thing is, as we said, mindsets are theories of how we see ourselves. And so what Dweck noticed was that a lot of people that she defined as having fixed mindset had an implicit theory, and a theory that wasn't very obvious to them, but that once you ask them questions and saw how they approach life, it became very evident. And that theory, you know, like this is an oversimplification, but that theory is accurately summarized in the following phrase: everyone is a certain kind of person, and there is not much that they can do to really change that. So if you're a person that believes that, you live more in a fixed mindset. Keep in mind that either though fix and growth sound like good and bad, this is not necessarily the case. It just means of what is your approach to change. And it also means that like it doesn't have to be generalistic. It doesn't have like, you can have a fixed mindset about like your capacity of doing art, and a very good growth mindset about your capacity of making friends. You're like, in art there's not much that I can do, but making friends I was really bad and I became really good by trying, right? Like, so that is not set in stone. But a fixed mindset is based on this implicit theory that there's something very innate and you can change a little but not much. And if you move more on this side, on the green side of the spectrum, it means that not much you can do, that like what you think what can change is very little. And if you go towards the growth side of the spectrum, you think that there's a lot that can be changed. And if you're like listening to this, I can guarantee that a lot of you like feels a lot of resistance on the idea, like, yeah, I think there's some right to it. Like I can change a little bit, but not that much. And probably creates a lot of resistance there. And that resistance is like implicit theories, like theories that you're not there, but that are conditioning your behaviors. The cool thing, what Dweck did and like has been done after she published her mindset book called Mindset, is that they have studied this. And what you will see that is very interesting is that having these mindsets will determine a lot of stuff in your life that is similar for people, right? And so what you'll see here is that if you have fixed mindset, you're a person that is gonna be defining performance goals more, right? Like these are people that really have a little bit of a metric fixation, that numbers are super important, and that delivering performance to somebody else is part of their goal. That's where they live. These people usually have helpless and defensive responses. So that means that when something doesn't go their way, they're like, well, man, I'm just bad at drawing, or I'm just like I'm just bad at cardio, right? Like, this just means like, like this workout didn't go well, it's just because I'm bad at cardio, right? It's helplessness. Or defensive when they feel attacked, right? These people also see people, like these people, like when you have fixed mindset about something, because we all do, I do, you see effort as lack of ability, right? Like, so if you, for example, find yourself being like, that should have been easy, that's a little bit of a fixed mindset that you're having there. It's like, no, difficulty or effort that is not a proof of lack of ability. But there's, you'll find, and I find this with a lot of my athletes, that for some of them, when they have a fixed mindset about a certain skill, they really will understand the effort as lack of ability. That should be easy. And it's like, no, it shouldn't. It never is. One of the great things about like the best performance in the world is that like they have put thousands and thousands and thousands of hours into one thing and one thing only, to make it look effortless. But it was based on hours of effort, so it's not effortless, it just looks like it. Good. And then when you have fixed mindset, your responsive tends to be punitive and aggressive. Think about the diet culture when you're like when you're living the calories in, calories out world, right? Like it's the world of should has, right? And so you went outside the norm because you failed, because there's something fixed about you. You're always like this kind of person. The only way that you will understand how to change is by right? And so that's one thing. And the growth mindset, people that has a growth mindset in certain areas, if you have growth mindset in certain areas, you'll see that you're always your goals are about learning. You wanna improve your breath. You just want to you don't care that much about metrics or metrics with respect to others, because what you want is to learn. You don't go to learn German to speak German better than other people. You go to learn German so that you can talk. It's a learning goal, right? Mastery-oriented responses So when something doesn't go their way, when you have a growth mindset, uh, uh, when something doesn't go your way, your response is that of like, what can I learn from this? How is this going to make me better? Right? Very different from being like, I'm just bad at this thing, right? And they see people, when you have a growth mindset, you seek effort. Effort is necessary for growth. So when you're not having to have effort, you're like, where can I go from here? Right? And then they have pro-social resilient responses. So when something doesn't go their way, they think of themselves as, how can I make this better? Right? How is this going to make this better? And in the social, in the interdependent realm, they're gonna try to make something better for the community. That is a part that I'm not gonna talk too much about it today, but on this spectrum, but it's there. So fixed and growth mindset are, and we know this clinically, right? Like when you have a fixed mindset, you will see this, and when you have a growth mindset, you will see this. And the cool thing is that, because that direct, like what we were saying is that the mediation is bi-directional. When you cut yourself in any of here, when you cut yourself understanding lack of effort, effort as lack of ability, you know you're having a fixed mindset. So you can start thinking about that, right? And we also know that if you start focusing on having learning goals, mastery-oriented responses, and so on, if you start like artificially making yourself do that, you eventually are gonna end up with a growth mindset. That is the cool thing about like the bi-directional mediation there, right? Awesome. Good. How can we apply this to the gym? And so growth mindset is probably the thing that like you already know a lot, and it's the model that is like most common. That's why the talk is called Others, in reference to the growth mindset and fixed mindset. I should have said that at the beginning, but just because these ones are the most popular, and this one, as I said though, everything is based off of these ones, right? Good growth mindset is the most single important thing you can do for yourself in the gym. For training, if you're an athlete, you're in the business of growing, right? Like, so generate a growth mindset, a learning mindset. It is the most powerful tool, because it's what's gonna keep you growing. A fixed mindset is gonna keep you fixed. It's gonna allow you just to grow in the things that you think you can, and then it's gonna keep you low on the other things, right? And so that is fundamental. How can you do that? How can you foster that? Find a skill where you have a fixed mindset consciously, where you think, when it's very clear to you that like, I cannot do this. This is not part of who I am. Commit to improve. That has a nuance. Of course, just because I think I can be a very good runner, I'm not gonna run faster than Usain Bolt. Growth mindset is not magic. But I know that if I want to, and I put my effort, and I do a good negotiations of like my time, my resources, and find good guidance, I can commit to improve in that area. I know I have a very good growth mindset in training, because I've been fostering that for years. And so there's places where I don't, in training still, right? And so I do this, I put myself in places of incompetence all the time. But find what my point was there, is find a skill that you have fixed mindset, and pick something that you can deliver though, right? So for example, most people think gymnastics, right? Like, I'm never going to have a handstand, a muscle up. All those are very achievable things, like maybe running a marathon, or like anything that is achievable, and everything is, and it will work, right? As you saw there, my first example was like, I cannot commit to run faster than Usain Bolt. That tells you something. That is a comparative, that is a performance oriented goal. That is a fixed mindset. Of course I cannot commit to that, right? And people, that is like, when you are always thinking comparatively or competitively, you're gonna end up in a fixed mindset, pretty much all the time. Anyhow, so find a skill where you have fixed mindset, commit to improve, and improve. Just prove that to yourself, because when you prove that to yourself, it changes for everything. You automatically unleash a superpower, and it's the superpower of being a learner. growth mindset is really the mindset of people that consider themselves good learners. And so that's important. Okay, but now let's talk about the other models of mindset. So the first one that is very talked about, that is very commonly talked about, is the scarcity abundance mindset. It was defined by Stephen Covey, but it has not been thoroughly researched as the fixed growth mindset has, right? Like we don't have structured evidence to like say like, okay, this concept makes sense. There's people that react certain ways that we are not seeing the patterns and so on, right? And so just keep that in mind. However, we have plenty of anecdotal evidence to talk about it. There's no implicit theory, but I'm gonna give you one. And so when we talk about scarcity, there's no implicit theory that I'm aware of. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's two extremes, right? Like there's the scarcity mindset and there's the abundance mindset. And the implicit theory on one side is that the amount of resources is not enough for everybody. And you can have, just like in the fixed growth mindset, you can have a mindset, a scarcity or abundant mindset for one thing, like for one specific area or like in general and so on. And the abundance mindset is like there's plenty for everybody, right? So this is very, like you can see how this comes from the business world, and it's very simple. By the scarcity mindset is the people that live that like you got one client more from you is one less for me, which is not the case at all, right? Like, that is not the case. But unless you live in a market that is really just 10 clients and and that's it, you have only 10 clients possible, but that is usually not the case. And so this is the continuum. Of course, just like in the fixed growth mindset, you can move through that continuum, right? Like you can go from here to here, from here to here. So the more you think like, yeah, well, you can change, but you cannot change much. You'll be here and so on, right? So very similar. These mindsets do determine different scenarios, right? So on the scarcity mindset, your goals are gonna be limited, but you're present, right? Like, so it's not goals of like what can I achieve? It's always goals of what, like, on your present. They don't make you grow. They're like, well, I'm not gonna. I'm like, I can only, it's when you do your budget of your company thinking only with the budget that you have right now. Like there's never going to be growth, right? Growth, good. It determines a scarcity mindset. It determines fear-based responses. So when something doesn't go your way, you always feel insecure. You feel like you're at risk. Effort is usually seen as a lack of resources, right? Like if you have to fight through something, it confirms that mindset, right? And it has competitive aggressiveness responses. So everything is competition because the pool is always finite. So any growth that is not mine is a loss for me, right? Any plus for anybody else is a minus for me. In an abundance mindset, you have dream goals. You're not limited. What do you want to do, right? Your responses are courageous because you are like, this is gonna be complicated. I'm gonna go and get it. You see effort as necessary for growth. Sorry about the typo there. And the most important is that in an abundance mindset, you see collaborative, resilient responses. So, because you are not worried about the success of others, you collaborate with them. And that's fundamental. Okay, so how do we apply this to training? The first thing is to redefine your goals, right? Like check those goals and make sure that they're dream goals. And like we said on the fixed growth mindset discussion is, it doesn't mean that we're like naive. No need to be that naive. And the best way to not be naive is look at the cost of things. And like see how much you're willing to put in, right? Like look at the trade-offs. So having a six-pack, I can. It means that I'm gonna give alcohol. Social interactions with food are gonna be a little bit awkward, and it's gonna be uncomfortable. I have to, look at the trade-offs. You want that? You want the traces or not, right? But really find your goals and dream big. Like, don't put limitation to your goals based on not what is limiting you, but like what you're willing to put in. Good. Second thing, and this is most important for your training, is I will find a lot of athletes and coaches that will feel that anytime that somebody, like you start training and your friend starts training too, and like you're like, like you're always kicking their ass, and suddenly they start catching up with you, and you feel so angry. Like it feels so competitive. It feels like somebody robbed you of your fitness. Nobody has at all. Your fitness is the same. It has nothing to do with the other person's performance. Thinking about money, right? It's like you made a lot of money. Now your friend is making more money, like, and it feels like you're not as rich anymore. Right? You are. You're just as rich. So turn that competitive, that feels like somebody took, like he got more money, it feels like somebody took that money from me. It's a scarcity mindset. So turn that competitiveness, anytime you feel it, into inspiration. Somebody got better, they can get better, I am too. Somebody raised that bar, fantastic. So much better for me, now I have to raise up, right? Like, just turn competitive into inspiration, into like, hey, this is awesome. If you can, I can, this is great. And especially in training, just really, and you're gonna have to force yourself into celebrating the progress of others. Nobody's taking anything away from you. If you are a runner, somebody run faster than you, that means that they have just raised the bar for you. That's good. That's a good thing. So turn competitives into inspiration. And one easy trick to do is be an active goal seeker. And by that I just mean that if for 2 weeks all you do is like, hey, that's cool, I'm gonna tell you that's cool with everybody. Not like you're looking good in that outfit, like you did something cool that I would like, something that like it's kind of like could be where you could feel competitiveness out, right? Like, hey, I saw what you did in that workout, that was awesome, dude, good for you. Hey, that post on Instagram, like if you're a business owner, that post on Instagram was really cool, good for you. So on, right? Like, be an active cool seeker. And that, seeing cool in other places, not feeling like people is taking that cool away from you, is gonna foster that abundance mindset, right? So abundance mindset in training is very important, very useful, because it's the possibility of using other people's successes instead of feeling like a loss, feeling like a gain, and that is fundamental. Good. The next two mindsets, the next two models have not been as well as they're not as popular, and they're just growing, and so they don't have implicit theories, and they're a little bit more complicated, but they're there, and there's something to it, and I think they're gonna benefit you, and so I'm bringing them. So the first one is the benefit mindset. This is that was developed by Ash Buchanan in a collaboration with a global community of contributors. That's how he presents it, and the way he did it is really as an extension of the growth mindset, and as the next step, right? Like, so in the growth mindset, you're like kind of oriented as you learning and growing, and it's like kind of oriented to your well-being. In the benefit mindset, you're oriented towards the well-being of others, right? Like, it's all about not just yourself as a learner, but you inside a community. So it's about benefiting others. And it's like, if in the growth mindset, I'm like, I believe for myself, I'm a good learner that through effort can change myself and learn new things and growth and always be better. In the benefit, I see myself as a person that can always flow and bring something to the table, and that's something that I do, right? And so it's a cool idea. as I said, there's no implicit theory, but this is my proposition. I think there can be. I think you don't really need to present it as like an evolution of the growth mindset. I think it can be a mindset on its own. I think the the implicit theory will be independent and interdependent. So in a independent mindset, your well-being mostly just depends on me, right? And that's how I present to the world. So I'm not like looking for benefit that much. Like, yeah, I want to be a good person and so on, but like, you know, like me doing a lot of good like doesn't really mean that I'm gonna be better, right? Like, and this is hard because there's so much more out there. But like, if you look deep inside you, you'll find it, the answer, what you really think here. And when you have a more interdependent mindset, my well-being is that of my community. That goes both ways, and that's what's important. Like, if you live in a country and most of the people well-being is very poor, your well-being is poor. Just because you are privileged doesn't mean you are better off, right? And so that change, just that belief that your well-being is that of your community, changes the way you act. Because if you think, if you all you see is like you know, like people that is not doing so well, you don't feel that well, and you do something to change about it, right? So it will really change your behaviors. And so again, and I think this will work as an implicit theory. That will have to be tested, of course, with people and like see their behaviors and really test it. But I think that will work. For an athlete, the way we will like have that benefit mindset is in two ways. First, asking for help. Asking for help is fundamental. When you are an athlete, you tend to be very independent, and we tend to not ask for help. And asking for help for you as in your development as an athlete moves you to an interdependent situation right away, because if you get gain from asking for help, you're gonna understand deeply how you're interdependent, right? And the second thing is teach something to somebody, right? Is the other direction, right? So the moment that you realize that teaching something to somebody it's better for you, you start realizing how you're connected with, how you're interdependent, right? Like the moment you realize that you need to spread your discipline, that you need to active, like the discipline that you participate in and that you love, you need to spread that if you want it to survive, if you want it to keep doing it, right? Like the moment that you realize that you're going a little bit out of your ways just to help somebody, is the moment that you'll see how that will benefit you, and that is very powerful. And it's something that we usually don't do because again, moral judgment feels like I should just do it for the sake of other. Nobody does anything for the sake of other, just for the sake of other. That's not how it works. We do things to get something in return, even if it's just the satisfaction to get to have done something, right? Like that is something in return. And so look at that, how that benefits you, right? And so look at try to teach something to somebody, right? Like the benefit mindset, the interdependent mindset is how we're not learners in a vacuum, we're learners in a web, right? Like anything that you learn makes no sense if you're alone, right? And so teach something to somebody and will automatically make you a better athlete. If you do this experiment, if you're good at snatching, if you're good at running, take your friend, tell him like, hey, or tell her, give me 10 minutes here, give me 1 hour of your life, tell me what you would like to learn and I'll help you. And with that experience, you'll become a better athlete. It doesn't sound like it, but you will. Anyhow, so that's the benefit mindset, right? Understanding interdependence. And the last model of mindset is something that is very new. It came out from the corporate world, and it's the global mindset. And I think it's very important. For this one, I do not have an implicit theory. It's not very well defined, but there's something there. There's something there that is important. And the global mindset, there has some principles here too, in particular. Is the ability to step outside one's base culture, and that is deeper. It means understand that your behaviors, what you think is right and wrong, that no matter how quantifiable your behaviors are, for example, your values are culturally determined. that means the ability to step outside one's culture, right? Like the moment that, like I realize that my views on effort, for example, I see this all the time. I'm Colombian. I see the views on effort. I live in the US. I have a lot of US athletes. I see their views on effort as very foreign to me. And I know that my athletes don't have the view of my cultural view, and for them they feel like the right way. I have a vantage point because I'm foreign, and so I have different points of view, and I can see how this is different, which tells me like how my point of view is culturally dependent, right? And so that's why it's so important to learn from different cultures. And the corollary of this is that there's no universally correct way to do things. That's so important in athleticism. That's so important in fitness training. If you are, I always tell this, if you are like an Olympic weightlifter, you have to, like, one of the cool things that I have done in my life is like learn the movement from the Chinese school, learn the movement from the Russian school, learn the movement from the American school, learn the movement from the Colombian school, see what are the practices, what is the things that they're looking for, and look for the differences. Yes, but that will be the evident. Look for the points of contact. Because that's also very important. That will also be very informative, and sometimes you find that there's a lot of points of contact, and those will tell you those are very fundamental, right? Like anything that is horizontal across cultures is something that, like, there's something there's something true to that, right? Like there's something that you want to be checking out. There's a principle there, not always, but it can be. And so when you're an athlete, the first thing to do is to check your assumptions, check the right way to do things. Relativize that. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Relativize, mijo. This is how we would say in Bogota. Make your assumptions, your ethos, the way you think about it, relative, right? So if you think that the way no pain, no gain, like if you don't push hard, you're not getting anywhere. Like relative, like that. Those assumptions are cultural in nature. Look at in other cultures, like get out of your bubble, like, and that takes a lot of effort. And look, and that will immediately make you a better athlete. How can you do this in a globalized world? Even easier. But I will pick, just like for the previous examples, I will pick small skill, always one skill, one small skill, right? Like keep it small, do there, like check your assumptions there, see which of those assumptions feel like very, very natural to you, very, like, there's no way around this. Those are the ones that are most culturally dependent, right? Like the things that, like, you feel like they're that way, the unquestionables, those are the ones that are going to be most culturally dependent. That's why they're the hardest. That's why, like, racism and sexism and all that is so hard to, like, change, because those are the ones that feel more natural to you. Anyhow, so that's the global mindset. So we have peaks and growth, scarcity and abundance, and then we have the two new ones, the global mindset and the benefit mindset. And if you apply them all, you'll have a more complete athlete for sure. And I know these last three ones feel like very outside your realm of athleticism, and I think that's an advantage, right? Like, do that. That's gonna make you immediately a better athlete. But it also will tell you something. All this experimentation with mindset will teach you something, and is that you can create the theory of your mind, right? Like, you can create the theory of who you are. You can create those views. You can determine your behaviors, not by sheer willpower here right now, but being more intentional, understanding how your mind works a little bit better, and really, little by little, act by act, change the way you think, you see yourself. And in that awesome, complicated, bi-directional mediation of mindsets and behaviors, you're gonna see a whole new person come up, and that can be actually very scary, but pretty awesome. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the different models of mindset. At least you're gonna be able to, like, tell your friends, like, dude, there's more than one mindset, and it's not an attitude. and that would be awesome. Have a good whatever it is that you're doing, dinner, lunch, or like whatever. And last thing, if you like this video and you want to keep seeing those videos and support me by subscribing somewhere there, I don't know how the YouTubers do it, but like there's some button over there, and yeah, and just let me know if you liked it.